What if I tell you that the Basketball Africa League, also known as the BAL, is not just selling basketball? It is selling the future of African sports business. The BAL was not created just to crown basketball champions. It was created to build sponsorship opportunities, media rights, be involved in tourism and merchandise, youth development, arena infrastructure like we've seen in Rwanda, which is a country that we will explore a little bit more in our future episode, African sports investment, a pathway for African players to stay connected to the continent. So today we are talking about the Basketball Africa League. We all know that basketball in Africa has never lacked talent. The problem has always been structure. For decades, Africa produced stars for the rest of the world. Some of these names you guys already know: Hakeem Olajuwon, Luol Deng, Joel Embiid, Pascal Siakam, Giannis Antetokounmpo. He may be representing Greece, but he has Nigerian parents. Dennis Schroeder. He may be representing Germany, but he has Gambian parents. So the talent has always been there, but the continent never had a true professional basketball business system to keep that value at home. So how did the NBA and FIBA decide to build the Basketball Africa League? And is this the beginning of Africa finally owning its basketball future? So let's deep dive into it. So the BAL was developed because the NBA saw what many African governments and business leaders had not fully capitalized on yet. Basketball in Africa was not just a sport. It was an undeveloped economy. So before talking about the formation of the BAL, the NBA had already begun planting seeds through programs like Basketball Without Borders in Africa. They had an NBA Africa office in South Africa. They have the junior NBA programs. They had the NBA Academy in Senegal. They had grassroots camps all over the continent, exhibition games. You guys may remember the 2015 NBA Africa Games. And you have, other programs like the one that's run by Masai Ujiri called Giants of Africa. Masai is now the president of the Dallas Mavericks. The BAL did not appear out of nowhere. It was the result of years of NBA groundwork on the continent. So all that to say that the NBA tested the soil before planting this tree. One important component in this whole BAL formation was the role of FIBA. So FIBA mattered because it already governed international basketball. It had relationships with African national federations or associations, and it understood club competition structures. So with that, it helped connect domestic champions to the BAL pathway. In essence, the NBA brought the commercial machine, and FIBA brought the international basketball structure. So what we're going to be doing in this episode, we're going to be breaking down the Basketball Africa League, what it really is, how it makes money, who's behind it, and whether this thing is actually sustainable, which is a very, very legitimate question. So the BAL was launched in 2021 after being announced in 2019, and it's built in partnership with FIBA, which I've already explained. So right now, it's a 12-team competition, but behind the scenes, it's much bigger than that. We're talking about most of the things I've already mentioned about sponsorship and media rights and those kind of things. But then you got to talk about the money, because this is where things get interesting. The BAL is growing, but it's not profitable yet. And anybody with a business mind and knows how these things work should know that the BAL is not expected to be profitable at this stage. Revenue is increasing, but so are losses. Running a basketball league is very, very expensive. Most leagues outside of the NBA are constantly losing money. If you look at the EuroLeague, some of these big teams like Real Madrid, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, they are all being sustained by their football counterparts. Like the football teams make enough money to be able to help the basketball teams continue playing and be able to pay their bills. Or you have other teams that have wealthy owners who will put in their own money just to see that the team, continues to play. So these things are very, very expensive. And that tells you everything that you need to know for the BAL. The BAL is still in investment mode. Right now, the biggest money drivers are what? Sponsorships, host country partnerships, and support from the NBA. Ticket sales? Yes, they're growing, but not huge yet. Merchandise? Still early. Media rights? Massive reach, but not massive money yet. So what you are really looking at is a league that looks premium, but it is still being built financially. So this is not a finished product. This is a startup with NBA backing. So I think one thing that's unique about the BAL is that they did not start like NBA with newly created franchises. It started with existing clubs. And I'm just going to try to explain this. So teams qualify through their domestic leagues and this program they have called Road to BAL. So what this does, this gave the BAL continental legitimacy. It connected BAL to existing basketball ecosystems in these countries. And what that does, it avoided creating fake teams with no roots. In the NBA, they have these expansions whereby a new team from a new city can just come in and start playing after they are approved by the owners and all of that. In Africa, that will be very, very hard to do. If the BAL started that way, I think it will not be where it is today, because just the dynamics, of the way Africa operates, because we are competing with soccer. Most of these soccer teams, some of them are close to 100 years old. They have that presence in some of these countries whereby, the fan base has grown. They are well known around the continent and all of those kind of things. So I think it was very wise for the BAL to take the route that they took and use teams that are in these domestic leagues and have them go through this qualification model, which I think gives the league credibility, but it also makes long-term business building harder because teams can change every year. That is something that they will have to find a way to grapple with, and I think that's where this whole model of the 50 million franchise model comes into play. So in our next episode, which is going to be episode number 2, we will follow the money, sponsors, investors, Rwanda's role in this whole BAL, media rights, merchandise, ticketing, and just like I said, the proposed $50 million franchise model. Because the real question is not whether Africa can produce players. We already know that. The real question is whether Africa can build a basketball economy. I'll see you in the second episode.